Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I am Tammi Mac. So when you think of Black women who make films, the names Oprah, Ava, Lena, Gina may come to mind. But on the Tammi Mac Late Show, we like to honor what has always been greatness in Black people. And so often we don't know about our legacy of brilliance, creativeness, and plain old excellence, if I may say so myself. America has often left names like Tressie Soldiers out of the history books, but never fear. The Tammi Mac Late Show is here. In 1922, the first Black woman produced a feature film called A Woman's Error in 1922. Tressie Soldiers wrote, directed, and produced the film that was hailed as the first of its kind to be produced by a young woman of our race, according to the Black press. Madeline Anderson is noted as the first Black woman to produce and direct a televised documentary and the first Black woman to be employed at the New York-based public television station WNET. And Ethel Waters was the second Black to be nominated for an Academy Award. Our unknown history. I'm here for it. I'm here for the women who have paved the way for the Oprahs, Avas, Lenas, and Ginas. I'm here for the women who contribute and continue to pave the way for today's guest when it comes to telling our stories. A Black woman's story. A woman's error in 2021. Tonight, the business of being Black on the Tammi Mac Late Show is in honor of the final day of Women's History Month. The business of being Black is owning our story. Please welcome actress, writer, and producer Ericka Nicole Malone. Hi, Ericka.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Actress and filmmaker Numa Perrier. Hi, Numa.
Hey, Tammi.
Filmmaker Mellissa Haizlip. Hi, Mellissa.
Hey, Tammi.
And actress Zaria. What's going on, Zaria?
Hey, Tammi.
So why should Black people care about Black women telling their own story? Let's kick this thing off, Mellissa. Why?
Well, I think we have so much to offer. You know, for so long, Black women have been left out of the narrative, and it's time to have a cultural corrective. It's time to take our space and to own that space. We are nurturing, we are givers, we build. That's what we do. Black women build, and we give life, we give birth, we nurture, and we have a very specific angle of love and community that really, that we imbue in all of our stories. And I think there's no one better than a Black woman to tell
cultural correctiveness. I like that. I like that. Okay, let's go, Ericka.
For a long time, I think, Tammi, that Black people in general, specifically Black women, have had to look through a lens of looking at white people, white stories, and adopting their stories, looking at the lens through their eyes. I think right now, Black women have taken the narrative. We've changed the narrative. We've now shifted into telling our stories and making other races look at the lens of our life through our eyes. And that's
Zaria, why should I care whether you Black women have your own stories to tell? Why? Why would I care about that, Zaria?
Well, I think there's an element of representation that we get to have when we get to tell our story through our mouth. We get to tell you exactly how it is to be a Black woman instead of someone's idea of what it might be like. We could tell you, and we could tell you for a long time how it is.
We definitely can. Numa, why should Black people care?
Listen, humanity started with Black people, so I just feel like Black women did it first, whatever it is. And so I'm all about reversing this notion that we're supposed to be to the back or be, you know, the platform that uplifts others. We need to be in the foreground, centered in our stories, leading our stories, having our point of view, because we kicked it off first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting. All of you talk about how we are the builders and how we kicked it off first. And why don't people know that? What do you think? Like, where has that story been? Where is that story that we kicked it off first, Numa?
Look, it's in the history books. It should be in the history books more. It's in the history books they don't show you in school. It's down to science. It's the intersection of science and art, if you ask me. So we definitely kicked it off first. And now we're letting you know through our own lens, with the camera lens, with our pen as writers, with our voices as actors and singers, and all across the board.
So Mellissa, why do you think people, well, first I should ask, do you think people are listening now? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I think people are starting to listen. I think we are on the eve of a racial reckoning, but in addition to that, after what happened last summer, there is an undeniable response to the revolution that we're going through. And Black women have been leading that charge. Black women have been changing the world. And, everything that happened in Atlanta, everything that happened in Georgia, politically, after our response to Breonna Taylor, collectively, people are realizing that Black women have not had a voice, and it's time to listen up.
And I think it goes back to that first question that you said, which is, when we get to say it through our mouths, then we get to tell you the truth of like, yeah, this is who we are as people,
Yeah.
But look, let's face it, women, yes, but Black women specifically, Zaria, and I'm bringing this one to you, Black women specifically have often felt unheard. And you hear that a lot from Black women. We don't feel heard. And it was a big deal when Kamala Harris said, I'm speaking, because we often have to say to people, I'm speaking. So when she said that, it was not new to Black women. It may have been new to the rest of the world, but we have often had to do this in a room. Why do you feel like, or Zaria, do you feel like people are hearing us now?
I think they're hearing us a lot more. I think there's obviously room for improvement. I mean, I remember, I think all of us can attest to being in a line and someone just walks in front of you as if you don't exist in that space. And I feel like that's a metaphor for how we are received in this society. But I think that now we are really grabbing some sort of footing and being able to be like, hi, I'm here and I'm going to be as big and as loud as I want to be because I deserve to be.
Girl, you just reminded me, I was in the grocery store the other day and this lady walked up behind me. I was in line, like literally at the checkout. Like it was my time. I was at the checkout and the lady just walked up on me. And I said, she walking up on me? What's going on here? I said, excuse me. And she still didn't move. I said, 6 feet, 6 feet, please.
Yeah, I've had that moment too, where I'm like, you see, I'm masked up and you're right there. We have to
like, do you really not see? She was like, oh, I forgot about the 6 feet. I just, with this whole, okay, well, I'm here to remind you. Sis, please. Oh, geez. Yeah. I want to know, it's 2021. Why is Hollywood still perpetuating stereotypical images of Black people? Or do you think that slowed down, Numa?
I think there's been some slowing, but again, it's because more of us are telling our stories. I was about to just jump in and say that it's really the power of film and the accessibility to filmmaking that I think is changing a lot of these narratives, because it's so powerful to look at an image over and over and over again and have that ingrained in your mind that that's your understanding of that culture, that's your understanding of that race, or that's your understanding of just a person who looks and walks in a certain type of body. So now that filmmaking is more accessible, more Black women are stepping up and saying, I want to be a filmmaker. I have something to say. I have stories. I have ideas. I have an imagination, and I have these tools now. And I have these platforms of social media now, all of these things that we didn't always have, and generations before us really didn't have. So there was no way to really mold and reinvent and tell the truth about who we are, because there was nothing else to be reflected back. So I think that's why it's such a powerful medium. And it's also why we've been kept out of that medium, because everyone does understand, the makers of these things, you know, the producers and the filmmakers and the studios, they understand the power of imagery, and especially the power of the moving image is just beyond, you know, how it can imprint on a person. So I think the change is coming because we have access to making these films.
Ah, that's the word right there. That access. Yes. That seat, that proverbial seat at the table. You know, when you talk about when you say how filmmakers, you know, the people who are green lighting, I'm assuming that you're talking about Numa. These people have always known how imagery affects people. And I always go to this one, like I hear people say that and I believe it, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't believe it for me until I saw the movie Us. And it's because in the movie Us, what had happened was the white folk got killed first. And when the white folk got killed first, I was like, oh my God, they killed the white people first. And I have never, ever in my life, I am a horror film fanatic. I've never seen a white person get killed first unless there were no black people in the movie. In horror films.
Right.
It was so shocking to me. And I thought that Mr. Jordan Peele was going to get reprimanded for killing white folk off first in the movie. Like that's how so it touched me. I was like, oh my God, imagery is everything. Just the fact that I was that emotional over that moment let me know how it's ingrained in me that white folk ain't supposed to die first. What the hell?
Right.
We're coming right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. And I promise you, we will all be alive and well and here to tell the story when we return. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is owning our story. Please welcome actress, writer, and producer Ericka Nicole Malone, actress and filmmaker Numa Perrier, filmmaker Mellissa Haizlip, and actress Zaria. Welcome to the show, everybody. So we left talking about imagery and how important that is. Most of us, I think with the exception of Ericka, are actresses as well. So
I'm an actress as well.
Okay, well there you go.
Okay.
Ericka is as well. So as Black women, I think it's imperative to talk about this from the actress point of view. How many times do you go in a room and ask to be the Black girl, the sassy girl? Does that still happen to this day? Is there still, or are there still stereotypical images that producers want you to play?
It still happens. The sassy thing definitely still happens. And sometimes I'm just remembering one time I was up for a sci-fi show, and there was something, you know, between a guy and a girl, like little love story thing in the middle of it. And after I finished the read, the casting director said, "Oh, I just love how sassy you are. Just love how sassy you are." And I was thinking, oh no, was I feeding into it by thinking I have to walk in here and play it sassy? Or is she just interpreting everything I do as sassy? Or am I sassy? You know, just all of those kind of identity politics are always front and center. But that word sassy, I think, is a favorite amongst casting people.
Yeah, I haven't heard the word sassy in quite some time. I used to hear it. I haven't heard it in probably the last 5 years, I'd say. They use other ways to get around the actual word sassy. And I know what they mean when they say it. I can't offhand even think about what that is. But I always sometimes feel like when they say, do it how you would do it.
Right.
I think to me, I interpret, oh, you want the sassy Black girl. And when they do that, I I go straight PhD on them. You know what I'm saying? I'm like put to shame. I remember when I first came to LA and I was doing an audition, and on my resume under where they put I don't know, the special skills, and one of my special skills is my Tina Turner impersonation. I have those lips.
You gotta do it.
I have those lips. I have those lips. All the men come in these places. And so, for some reason, that particular day, they saw my resume, and the first thing they asked me to do was my Tina Turner impression. And I did not want to do it. And they were like, this audition is not going to continue unless you do it. And from that day forward, I did it. And from that day forward, I decided that I would take it off of my resume completely, because I felt like I was being a monkey for the white man. That's how I felt. And so there have been several times where I felt like I was in a cage and they were looking at me laughing and pointing. And I don't think white people understand what that feeling is or how it happens, because they've never had to be that animal in a glass, if you will. Zaria, what about you?
I can't remember the last time I was called the sassy Black woman, but I think it's also the mannerisms, right? Oh, can you say that? Can you say it this way? Or can you do this with your head? Or can you, it's very interesting to me how, the breakdowns for Black women versus the breakdowns for white women or people that aren't of color. I know recently that I was actually in an acting class and I had two acting friends that were just chatting about this role that someone else got. And I knew this, I'd known that this person, and she kind of wasn't their typical Black woman. And they were like, I'm so surprised that she got this role, because the role didn't specify for Black women. Of course, that's not what they said. And I just heard them chatting about how this role was so intellectual and so this and that. And I was like, what about it? What about it makes it unbelievable that she got this role? And they were like, oh, if you knew her. And I was like,
oh wow,
you know her. So yeah, it's very, very awkward when people are caught in their tracks, like
I see. I would think that in this generation it doesn't happen as much. So to know that there's still remnants of it in some way is very interesting. Ericka, you want to speak on it?
Well, I will just be honest. Because I kind of create my own system, I can create roles for myself that without having to go through the system. I know for me, it wasn't going to be a comfortable situation to have to go into those auditions back to back and have that. And I know the way it's set up, I won't say against Black women, but not for us. So because of that, and because I'm able to finance a lot of the projects I do, I'm able to write my own roles and I don't have to audition for them. So.
Well, there you have it. There you have it right there, sister. But speaking of that, then let's turn into another direction. Is it easier to be the sassy Black girl if the movie is being produced by a Black woman? Is it easier to take on those attributes? Does it not seem racist? Does it not seem stereotypical? Is there a different intent behind it that you receive if the movie is being produced by Numa or Ericka or you, Mellissa? Is there a difference?
I think there's definitely a difference if we know that the story is being told by us for us. And so it's not about appropriating the culture or, using the culture as a clothes hanger for someone else's agenda. Maybe if it's our own agenda and our own story and our own, the provenance of the story is ours for us, and it's not intended to be a caricature or a gross, misrepresentation, but it's something that we have decided upon. As long as we have agency and we're centered in that story, it feels like it would be more authentic. Although I hate to use the word authentic. I mean, authentic to us, to our culture.
You agree with that, Numa?
Overall, I agree with it. I think it's still kind of it can still be an uncomfortable space, because even if we're producing it as Black women, who else is involved? You know, like, is there a studio involved that's giving notes to that Black woman that's trickling down in this way so that those things are still being fulfilled? I think you have sometimes a better shot at communicating how to deliver some nuance within that. But it's not always a definite okay thing, because it's produced by one of us, that you're going to escape those tropes.
Yeah. I want to go to our soulmates. Hey, Incog, says a wise person once said, whoever controls the media controls the mind. Ursula O says, we have saved everyone else and they throw us away. We are speaking now. Because we don't control the media, the perception of Black women's contributions is distorted. They're still, and they don't respect us. Nah, they're still making slave movies by white producers. Wow. Okay. They're still making slave movies by white producers. So then, Ericka, you talk about you doing your own projects, but is there, as Numa spoke about earlier, is there access? And I do know that you have produced several projects. You have one being produced currently right now at this very moment about Mahalia Jackson.
Yes.
And
yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No. Yes. Right now I'm producing Remember Me, the Mahalia Jackson story, starring Lettucey, Columbus Short. And yeah, there's plenty of room for us to produce our own stories. I think it's pivotal for Black people that there's not really, to me, in Hollywood, a pathway that's been created for us to walk through. We have to blaze our own trails and create our own systems and create projects that gives ourselves access. I think the time of waiting for access is over. I think we have to create our own systems and put our other Black women in it, other Black men, other Black writers, and create ways for other people to tell their stories and other people and other actresses to get exposure. So yeah, I think there's access when we create our own access.
Yeah. And so I have to ask you then, because I know that you come from a medical field, a medical background. So how then do you leave a medical background and come into this storytelling business? How does that happen?
Well, my business partner comes from a medical background. I co-own a healthcare firm. So because we co-own a healthcare consulting firm, I used to be over marketing and now I'm a partner. That is why I'm able to finance the projects that we're able to do. And so I've always been a playwright, then screenwriter, and that was who I was when I was working in that field. And just transitioning over to Ericka, Nicole, Malone Entertainment, where we're able to produce these projects. Having that healthcare background helps being able to finance the projects we're doing now. So it's married to each other, I would say.
That's a beautiful thing, because listen, when it comes to Black people and producing their own projects, the one thing we lack are the finances.
Yeah.
And that's usually the reasoning behind us not being able to produce our projects. How do we get around that, Mellissa?
Well, one of the things that I did was to apply for grants for my project, but that's a really lengthy process. It's super competitive and you don't always get the grant after you spent years writing it. And, there's a finite amount of funds. So sometimes you have to find your partnerships and your allies and find like-minded organizations. If you don't want it to get too commercial, you stay in sort of the nonprofit world and find allies, find angels, find people who believe in your story. Sometimes it just takes one angel, who's not who's out there caping for you, but they're not trying to take from you, and they might be a partner or at least help you in, find money and connect you to other people who will help you find money. It's always finding someone to believe in you first, and then they can help you, if they're generous, to find other money. Sometimes that's just an EP, executive producer who believes in you, who can make that call,
And when we come back, I want to talk to Numa, because I know you're tied to Ava DuVernay when it comes to getting films financed. And we're going to find out exactly how when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight the business of being Black is owning our own stories. Ladies, I want to talk about the lack of funding. Does that stunt the growth of creativity?
I mean, how can it not?
Money.
Right. It's a resounding yes, a resounding yes.
Yes.
Yes and no. I mean, personally, I write poetry, so I do that kind of on my phone.
You have a book. You have a book on my phone, my ass. You have a book.
Yes, but it evolved. It evolved to be a book, right? But that was like, I used Amazon self-publishing and kind of was like, well, I don't have a publisher, but I really love these poems and I really think they could be good for the world. So We Got a Lot to Be Mad About and said, I'm a Black woman and I'm mad, and that's okay because we have a lot to be mad about.
Yeah, that's great. What inspired the poems in the book?
Oh, so it was written along the time that George Floyd was murdered, and it was a direct response to the civil unrest, a direct response to the protest, and kind of just a scream and a cry, because I had seen this happen with Philando Castile. I'd seen it happen in a different way. It wasn't the world protesting, but I had seen how it garnered attention and then it just deflated. And I just needed to get something out into the world.
We're glad you did. I also know that when it comes to being creative, I don't mean to put your business out here, Zaria, but you came on the show. So, but I know that when we talk about funding, stunting, creative growth, I don't think funds stunt your growth. First of all, you come from a doctor and a lawyer, and not only that, with a doctor and a lawyer as your mother and father, you still use your creativeness to make your own prom dress.
Oh yeah, I did do that. It's funny because having a doctor and a lawyer and wanting to be an actor doesn't compute. So that was a challenge in itself, but they're really supportive. Yeah, and
So why would you make your own prom dress?
Because I have such creative visions, and I was like, I need this. And I lived in Indiana, so I was like, they ain't gonna have it. So I just created my own prom dress, and my mom got the fabric, and it was a whole thing. I'm really still proud of it. It turned out well.
As you should be, girl. As you should be. I know you how you all up in my business like that. What I do. That's what I do. If folk look, I'm the opposite. I'm the antithesis of slander and gossip. If folk are doing good, that's what I spread around. That's my gossip. You come to me to find out what Black folk doing right. Speaking of which, Mellissa.
Yes, ma'am.
My producers are all in my ear talking about Melissa's not an actress. Melissa's not an actress. I beg to differ, my sister, because I know that you and I share radio together, and you were once an actress on Tom Joyner's It's Your World.
That's right. Oh my God.
That was one of my favorite, one of my little favorite things on the Tom Joyner morning show, the It's Your World thing. Rodney Perry used to do it. So many comedians used to do that. And sometimes they recorded it over at KJLH in Los Angeles. So go ahead.
We also recorded it in Brooklyn. I'm sorry. What am I saying? I just skipped it. I just skipped a state. Sorry. In Burbank. And it was really fun because it was just a really unique bunch of people who would get together every week. And, you follow these characters for years. So I didn't have a real character, but I would come in as a bit player. And so every week I had a different role, which was fun. At one point I had a longer arc, but, acting with your voice is very challenging, but it can also be really rewarding because you're just focusing on telling the story, not really worrying how you look, but trying to embody a character. So that was really fun. And it was syndicated for a long time before it went away.
Yeah, very long time. Numa, we were talking about everything that these ladies are doing that's phenomenal. But I know you're here to talk about a newer project, but Jazebel was phenomenal. Let me say this. And so I'm I won't go into all the details about it, but it was just a fantastic piece of art. And I love you and everything that you do, because I've been following you for a very long time, since the whole Black and Sexy TV, if you will, Roomy Lover Friends. And actually, I have to say, since we are talking about women who are telling our own stories, you're tied to Issa Rae in a way from Black and Sexy TV, and you were also a part of her Awkward Black Girl. And not only that, I think she, in some way, you guys were partnered up for Black and Sexy TV. And then Ava DuVernay, her Array company, helped to produce Jazebel. Am I right or wrong in that?
You're right on the right track. You're on the right track. All of us kind of came up together in the same pocket of time. So right when YouTube was taking off in 2010, we're going back a decade now, we were all just trying to get our various projects off the ground. And Black and Sexy TV was on YouTube with all of our early shows that I was directing, acting, show running, writing, doing all of it. Issa Rae was on YouTube with Awkward Black Girl in its first season. We were collaborating together. We lived in the same neighborhood. Across the hill, over the hill, is Ava, who was a publicist at the time, but was quietly making her first feature film and starting to build the initial Affirm, which is now Array Distribution. Right. So 8 years go by, we're all making our things, moving into bigger deals, and trying to also retain ownership over what we're doing as best as we can as we're branching into other things. And I decided to finally direct my first feature film. And because Ava had been watching from a distance all along the way, we had gone to support her films when they came out. She would come out and support things from Black and Sexy. It was just this community that was loving on each other from a distance, but also showing up in person. So when I made my first feature and I reached out to her, I said, hey, I've got this movie. We need a great distributor. I think that Array would be a great home for it. Their team watched it. They fell in love with it and they distributed my film. So that's, when we're talking about access and being able to really not only tell our stories, but actually deliver them out to the world so that more Black women can be inspired to make their own, but also just receive that story. If I really do believe that if I didn't tell that story, the story of Jazebel would have never been told because no one else lived that but me. That's my personal story. So that's the Ava connection. That's the Issa connection. We all came up together in this very indie, self-determined space, and we're still going strong.
We love it. We love that you're still going strong. I love that even back then, you and your team came out. I used to host mixers in Leimert Park, and your team came out to help people to create their own projects. So we've been talking about ownership and creating your own for quite some time. Like, this ain't my first time on the Tammi Mac Late Show talking about women rising and being in a space to create their own work and to own their own work. Issa Rae also came out to that mixer and talked about creating and owning and creating your own projects. But every time somebody says create your own projects, we have to bounce back to the funding. And one of our soulmates says that funds don't stunt creativity, but it stunts scalability. So is he right? Because it sounds right. Like, funds, maybe they don't stunt creativity. It's just the scalability. I love that. I love that.
It's so true. It's so true, because I look at it as no matter how much money you have, as you start to scale up, it all feels like the same money, because now you've got more budget, but so now you want bigger toys, you want more things, you want more locations, you want to attach different people who have a higher price tag to them. You want to do more. You want to lean into really having a full publicity team that costs money. So it's no matter what, you always feel like you want more because you want to go bigger. And the funding is what gets you there. But I think it's also good to really look at, and I've learned along the way, are other forms of currency. Like this right now is us talking and building community together is a very strong, lucrative form of currency that will get people in those seats when you are doing something in a very independent lane. So money does matter, but money is currency, obviously, but there's also these other forms of currency that I think we really need to grab a hold of and invest in just as much as we care about the actual numbers.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Please welcome actress, writer, and producer Ericka Nicole Malone. We have today with us actress and filmmaker Numa Perrier, filmmaker Mellissa Haizlip, and actress Zaria is all with us because the business of being Black today is telling our own stories. And because, this is the last day of Women's History Month, I thought, I do it with all women. Why not? Why not here? Before I move on, I do want to ask you, Numa, since you are a huge part of that web world, do you think that it still exists, or did it become so saturated that people won't be able to arrive from it or be found on it, much like you and Issa?
I'm a little bit sad about it because I think that what happened is the larger corporations swooped in. They saw something happening in the Black community. They saw, all of these rising stars in front and behind the camera. And they saw that, oh my goodness, there's an audience. Look at all these views. Look at all this engagement, all these comments and everything. And they swooped in and gave everybody deals. And so, some of those deals went on to be shows. Some of those deals didn't, but they swept in. And now it's kind of back to square one in a way of going and trying to pitch your shows, whereas we weren't going and pitching our shows. We were just making our shows and putting them on the web. So I still think that there's a lot of opportunity in that space, but the space is now crowded with the big companies all having streamers now. So they used to look down on us and say, oh, that's a web series. But if you have Amazon and Netflix and HBO Max doing series online, those are all web series too.
That's exactly what it is. Oh my God.
Like that's a web series.
That is a web series. It is on the internet. It's on the internet.
It's streaming just like this, And
streaming on the internet, honey. So, but did you get a deal? Were you satisfied with it if you did, or did it go tragically wrong?
It didn't go tragically wrong. It just didn't move forward, and that's what happens. Companies will come and they'll
So what do they do? Do they give you like a deal, like a I don't know, a 2-picture deal, or do they give you a check to do 3 series? Like, how does that work?
Well, it depends, but usually there's definitely a form of them buying the rights to your show or optioning.
Okay.
So you stop them producing it for your own audience that is already, gathering on YouTube or wherever you're putting your thing at. And so then it kind of just slows everything down because now you're not putting that content out, and now you're trying to satisfy their needs and how they want the show to become. So it's a long process. And Issa could even talk about her process was also very long and very trying to get that show from the web to meet what they wanted it to be, and just trying to really have.
So it really becomes like a network situation where you're at the networks and they're now telling you what to do, what not to do, what works, what doesn't work for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Want to run to our soulmate. Our soulmate says, I saw Melissa's documentary, Mr. Soul, at New York University and Tribeca Film Festival. She had an outstanding turnout at both. It was nostalgic. People were reciting some of the old clips. Good to see Anna Maria Horsford as well. She is one of my mentors. It's absolutely wonderful to see her. Talk about that experience though. And what did the Tribeca Film Festival do for you, Mellissa?
Wow, it was so incredible. We premiered at Tribeca and we were part of the television series part of the festival. So they were featuring television or films about television. And we were able to put on a show. You know, Soul was this wonderful show on PBS from 68 to 73. And they called it the Black Tonight Show, which hadn't happened before. And so we kind of recreated an episode of Soul right after the film premiered. And that was amazing. And it was just so incredible to be in New York, making a film about a typical New York show. And that really opened up so many doors for us. We played over 50 festivals. We won 14 film festival awards. And, you know, it's just been growing and growing. We just won a first NAACP Image Award last weekend. So, you know, what that means really is just, you know, not cloud chasing, but more visibility for a truly independent filmmaker with a real story about, you know, Black folks and our Blackness, and reminding us of our greatness. And so being able to share that now in the midst of this, you know, difficult year we've been in is really, really wonderful. It's so uplifting. And I think we need great stories right now. We need
it's a difference between clout chasing and the clout coming to you, sis.
Okay. Well, no, sometimes it feels weird to talk about awards, you know, but awards just bring visibility. And it's so hard to be an independent Black woman filmmaker who, you know, I did this completely by myself and with our team. And we just got a deal for a streaming deal, which hasn't been announced yet. But, you know, it took so long just to make it all happen. So it just seemed to take longer, you know.
Right.
And so it's really exciting to be able to have more visibility for the story, because that means more stories like ours can be made.
Yeah. Marseille Martin has reached great heights at the age of just 16. We can't leave her out of this conversation. In a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, she said her projects will not highlight Black pain, as she has a no Black pain rule at her production company. She said, if it's Black pain, I don't go for it, because there are so many films and projects about that. So that's not who I am. And I want to make sure that it is diverse and real in its own way. Is this good or bad?
I think there's a line. Oh,
no, go ahead.
There's a line. I think there's room for both. You know, I think that if we totally swing to the other side of the pendulum, it's only showing the happy and Black joy that we have every liberty to tell. We deserve to get to tell those stories. But I think, you know, something that I really learned in Two Distant Strangers, which is the short film that I'm in, is it's also
well, really, not just the short film that you in, but didn't it win an Oscar?
It's nominated.
Same thing, girl.
Yeah. Speak it, girl.
Nominated, winner, whatever.
Yeah. So it's nominated, and it really showed me that there's beauty in it being an independent film written by a Black man who was just trying to put words to the feeling that he felt, yes. You know? Mm-hmm. So I think there's room for both. I think if that's what she wants to do, that's amazing. I think there's room for Black people to say, hey, this really hurts me. And this is a story that I want to tell. But I think that we shouldn't be limited to what we get to tell.
And I think that's what the story has been all along, is that the stories about Black people are not diverse, which is why mainstream America and people across the world see us as monolithic, because they only see one side of us. And so now that we have people who are telling all of our stories, you can see that, look, we come in different shapes, sizes, colors, all of that. In recent years, television programs like Blackish and Insecure have featured Black women wearing natural hairstyles that challenge the white standards of beauty. How do these images impact Black women and Black girls? See, like, I have to go to you on this, Numa, because let me tell you, sister, you are one Black woman. You just don't give a shit about what people have to say. If you naked, if you show a titty, if your hair is curly one day, straight one day, I don't know. I have often wondered where you get that unshakable, unmovable, infallible confidence.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not
taking no picture, Numa. I'm not taking no picture with my titty out, not because I wouldn't take a picture with my titty out, but because I'm not that proud of my titty.
Got it. Good to know. I mean, I'm an artist. And I consider my body a work of art, no matter, you know, what shape it's in, what age it's in, wherever it goes, whatever it's going through, whatever it's been through. Yeah, you know, and that's part of my job, is to be vulnerable in that way and to not be afraid. I think every artist has their different kind of, you know, policies. Like Marseille was saying, you know, she has very specific policies about how she wants to make her contribution. And for me, it's about really being as raw and open and just all the way in whatever character I'm playing. So yeah, that's where I get it from. I can't say that I don't sometimes feel nervous or sometimes, you know, have apprehension about how something may be received, but I just really can't do less than that. I don't feel right doing less than that in my work.
I love it. I love it. You know, maybe I'll take a picture with my, you know. I love the energy.
It's a work of art.
I love it. I'm gonna start a new hashtag. Let it all hang out.
Yeah.
And just, you know, women with their saggy titties just hanging out. I mean, Lizzo. I interviewed Lizzo long before she was Lizzo, and she was then who she is now. And she said she has never worn a bra and never will. Oh. And I thought, girl, that's something right there. That is something. Look, let's go to break on that. Hashtag let it all hang. Ladies, we need to get back into the bra burning business. Half y'all got fake breasts anyway. You don't need no bra. Right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I think it just had a list there, but that's all right. It came back together. Let's see. Our soulmates are in the chat room. We must tell our stories. Until the lion learns to write, the hunter will always be glorified. An African proverb. Thank you for that African proverb. We appreciate that. So, Ericka, you appear in Lifetime's. Well, do you actually appear in the movie too?
I didn't write that version. Mine is the independent version of Mahalia Jackson. I wrote "Remember Me," Mahalia Jackson, originally in 2017, and so it shopped around Hollywood, and so. We just decided to produce it ourselves, me and my business partner, Philip Robinson, with Ericka and Nicole Malone Entertainment. So ours is an independent film version of Remember Me, Mahalia Jackson.
Oh, excellent. We can't wait to see it, especially after I've seen some stills and Lettucey, like in it, Columbus Short. We actually had Columbus Short on the show talking about him playing Dr. Martin Luther King, right?
Yes, yes.
You know, he's a fantastic actor.
Phenomenal. Both performances are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Janet Huber, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, playing Aunt Duke, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Keith David, Keith Robinson. It's an excellent, excellent cast.
I'm glad you could bring it together. Zaria, you star in the Oscar-nominated short film, Two Distant Strangers, that debuts on Netflix April 9th. So what do you want to tell us about the character Perry, or about the film at all? Just to go watch it for sure, huh?
Yeah, I think it's a fun ride. It's an independent film that was acquired by Netflix. So we're so grateful that a lot of eyes get to see it. And I also wrote a poetry book called We Got a Lot to Be Mad About. That's available on Amazon. And if you have any interest in a little bit of poetry, it's a fun read. So I encourage
We'll all go to Amazon and grab it, sis. I promise you that. Mellissa, you received several accolades for the film Mr. Soul. We want to watch it. How?
It's actually out right now. It debuted on PBS just a few weeks ago. So you can still watch it on PBS, and it'll be coming out on a major streaming platform, which we'll be announcing shortly. Just so excited about that. And the song, which was shortlisted for the Oscars, Show Me Your Soul by Robert Glasper and Layla Hathaway. We're going to be dropping that single really soon. So
I love me some Robert Glasper and Layla Hathaway. Oh, Lord.
So much.
You killing them now, Robert.
That's coming out and dropping out.
Hathaway, are you kidding me?
Yeah, she sings the last song of the film. It starts with her dad, Donny Hathaway, and then it ends with Layla Hathaway. So it's just so dope.
Oh, wow. Numa, since co-founding Black and Sexy TV, you found success with your film Jazebel that you wrote and directed, and you've also directed episodes of Queen Sugar. So now, what? Don't you hate that question? I hate that question now.
I don't hate it today because I don't hate the question today because I have an answer. You know, when you can't talk about something.
That's what. Okay, so that's why I hate it. Okay.
I actually can. So definitely watch Jazebel on Netflix, and I am directing my first studio feature for Netflix called The Perfect Find, starring Gabrielle Union and Niecy Nash. We're filming this summer in New York. And I am wildly excited about it. So
I don't know how you can't be wildly excited about that.
Yeah.
You keep rising to the top. Thank you for being on my little old digital show here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mellissa, Zaria, Ericka, and Numa for being on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Until tomorrow, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.